every artist to some degree is a validation addict. Whenever you see interviews of past rock stars, 9 out of 10 of the times, a lot of rock stars were losers in school.
Right.
Didn't get the girls, didn't get attention, weren't cool and stuff like that. So, of course, they developed these fantasies of being a big star.
Sure. Hello and welcome to the Vinny Brusco Show podcast, episode number 456. This week's episode, I'm joined by Anthony Vincent. Anthony is a YouTuber, an artist, a musician, a lover of Stoic philosophy, and most importantly, a friend. Anthony and I connected 10 plus years ago when I did this show on him and his brother's network, Zadalza.com. And 8 years ago, Anthony's cover of Katy Perry's Dark Horse in 20 different styles went completely viral, and ever since then, he's been living his dream of being a full-time musician. Anthony and I got into a heap of conversation, everything from what it was like to go viral, the moment he went viral, if he'd even want to go viral again, Stoic philosophy, the constant pursuit of being better, and much, much more. It was a great conversation, so I hope you enjoy episode number 456 with Anthony Vincent. Enjoy.
Hey, everybody, this is Anthony Vincent, or the 10-Second Man, and this is the Vinny Brusco Show.
And here we go.
When did you guys start doing the show live stream, like from the bedroom?
That was in the summer of 2007.
2007.
I can tell you exactly why. Do you want to save this?
No, yeah, we're going. Whatever. We're good. We're good.
Are
we're
we
recording.
recording?
Yeah, we're recording. Yeah.
Well, the reason why we started streaming in 2007, and I know that sounds crazy. That sounds like, how is that even possible, right? Well, because we went to a YouTube convention in Washington Square Park in the city.
I remember that.
And at the convention, it was a very small get together. You got to think that YouTube was only a year old at the time, really, or maybe a couple of years old at the time.
Yeah.
So the people that were there, I remember we went with our uncle because he was always savvy and being in tune with like the latest thing that was going on. And he had some people that he hoped that he would see, like, YouTubers weren't
a thing.
What they were now.
Right. It wasn't a job. It wasn't a career.
Nothing.
People weren't like, I want to be a YouTuber.
Not. There was a thing called Lifecasters and stuff. Like, well, hold on. That I'm skipping ahead. So we went to this thing, and we noticed there was a guy that was walking around Washington Square Park with a webcam on his hat.
That's crazy.
And we were like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm streaming." He's like, "How are you?" We were completely flabbergasted. Okay, this guy had a he had a laptop in his backpack and a webcam on his hat, and he was streaming from Justin TV.
Yeah, I remember Justin TV.
And if you know what Justin TV turned into, you know what it turned into.
Twitch.
Yeah. So that's what he was streaming from. He was streaming from Twitch. And
that guy's still around?
I don't know. We don't know. I have no idea who he is.
That guy's the original Twitcher.
He was the one that gave us all the information when we asked him, like, how do you do this? And I mean, what he was doing was he was in an open space. I don't even know how the hell he tapped into Wi-Fi at the time. And that was a whole different, whole different
There were no hotspots.
Right.
Like you couldn't just Wi-Fi hotspot your phone.
Yeah. But what we did was we went and we took all the information he gave us, and we discovered how to do it from our bedrooms, like between, at my family's house at the time. I was living, me and my brother were still living there, and we had our bedrooms were across from each other. So that's his room. He was in his room. Me and Mike were in my room, and we streamed a show, and we just set up webcams. We figured it out. We started on Justin TV, but we didn't like it.
Right.
So we went on Ustream.
Right.
And we got in very, very early because at that time, these websites, you can actually know the owners.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like Brad Huxtable of Ustream, we became friends with.
Right.
So he was like giving us all this support and crazy shit with Ustream, so we stayed on there. I wish we did something like that with Justin TV, and we knew, like, that'd be cool if we were on the ground floor of that.
Right.
Now Twitch is one of the biggest things in the world. It's just crazy to me how it's blown up. I mean, streaming and podcasting, and during the pandemic, especially, I mean, it was humongous. Now it's like, I feel like I know it's a lot of it is going on, but things have kind of like calmed down. I feel like a little bit.
Well, I think podcasting specifically, because that's just the world I live in. It specifically is, everybody has a podcast. It's literally no different than having an Instagram page at this point. Like there's probably a big margin there. I'm exaggerating a bit, but at this point, everybody has a podcast. When you guys were doing this, which was, again, how we got introduced originally years ago. We'll get into that story years ago.
I was thinking about that.
This wasn't what it is today. Like this is before any of this was going down, like 2007. Like this is before any of it.
And people will hear us talk and think like, yeah, they're full of shit. It's so true, man. We were so ahead of our time.
It's ridiculous. It really, when you think about it, and you think about where it is now and the capacity of podcasting now and what's happening with podcasts now, it's hard to believe, like, and it's kind of weird to even say, like, you guys were on the like you really were like this like pirate radio, pirate podcast of like, what made you guys do that? Like, what made you think like we want to do this? Like, I know you come from a very artistic background. You have, that's kind of ingrained in you and your brother, no question. Mm-hmm. But what made you guys want to be like, we're gonna like podcast essentially?
Because Frank and I, we played music together. Mike was involved with that because he was kind of like a roadie,
right?
And we had a lot of good times gigging and playing music together. And it was a fun thing that we had, that we bonded together, and we had friends, and it was something to do.
Right.
Okay. When that band broke up, we really, none of us went our separate ways and joined other bands. I mean, we could have done that.
Sure.
Instead, like, I was like, we were just kind of left with this. We just decided to stick together.
Right.
Okay. And being in another band together was kind of difficult, because, interests started to change, and I started to want to sing more. At the time, I was like a bassist, and I wanted to sing, but I wasn't developed yet.
Right.
I sucked. Like,
right.
And I wanted to do music production and record us so we didn't have to go and spend money. And
right.
But I also sucked with that too. So like,
but the technology also wasn't what it is today. Not even close. Like not even close. This is Pong in comparison to like Xbox.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what ended up happening was we just, Frank, he was at Manhattanville College at the time, and he took an opportunity. There was an open slot, a late open slot for a show.
Right.
And on his radio station over at Manhattanville College.
Right.
I think it was on like Saturday nights or Friday nights at like 2 a.m. I don't know. It was a late slot, but we loved it because it was like, oh, we can hang out, and then we can do this late. So we can drink, like we can go and get some coffees and just hang out, and it was fun, and we thought, and was like, hey, let's make this a fun thing. Let's see if we can actually do a radio show together, and we'll come up with bits, and we did like audio skits and stuff, and it was all really just very stupid, edgy shit that you listen back now, you cringe. It was really just we thought that, oh, we got to be as edgy as possible to just get attention. It was like that shock jock bullshit.
Well, that was also a sign of the times, right? Like I was a huge Opie and Anthony guy, like huge. Everyone's like Howard Stern, and I respect and admire Howard Stern for everything that he did, right? He definitely was the forefront of that wave. But I was a big Opie and Anthony guy. Mm-hmm. And even when we came over to Zadal's and we were doing our show, just literally recording, me, Steve, and Carmen were recording our show in the K-Rock studios and just putting them on CDs and handing them out to people like it was a band, and we were like recording a demo. We even called it the demo show because we didn't have a name for the show, and we were just recording bits, and we were just having a good time. But there wasn't this podcast culture yet, right? It was still just Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony, Elvis Duran and the Z Morning Zoo. Like these were the big shows at the time. And that was kind of what you had to model. There wasn't this kind of stream of consciousness podcast movement that we're seeing now. No. So a lot of it was built out of that shock jock, and that was just a sign of the times.
Yeah. and we did like, that's we were goofing off, really. I mean, I wasn't in it like I was like trying to be like any kind of, I wasn't passionate about talking into a microphone. My brother is.
Right.
Frank is definitely found a passion within that. That was definitely something that kind of like it triggered a thing for him. And he really started taking it seriously more and more and more. And then he went on a different direction. But for me, it was just something to do with Frank and Mike, and we made it. And then after the radio slot ended for Manhattanville, we were like, how could we do this on our own? And
right.
Mike is like, he's the type of person that just figures shit out. And, like he did research, and that's when we found Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah. That was a thing. That was a thing.
But there was also, there was another one too, that you can stream live. If just audio, it was like internet radio. I forget what it's called, but we did that. And I remember we used to always make jokes because there was, anytime we stream live, we tried to get our friends to listen, but there was always 0 people listening. And it's like how many people? And Mike would always make the joke, eggshell. He would just say like, an eggshell is listening, because it's just 0.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird because like you feel like you're talking into a vacuum, right? Like there's nobody out there, but there's something still engaging about it. There's something still that's going on energetically, whatever you want to call it.
It was cozy.
Like, exactly.
We purposely, we did it like in a way, like we put a divider, we had a mixer here, we dimmed the lights. Like there was no cameras in there for anyone to see, but we dimmed the lights, and it was just like a cozy thing. Like we're putting out a signal out there and stuff. And who knows, maybe there was an extraterrestrial listening. Yeah, we don't know. Like, but that was the basis of it. And I'm not kidding. We made a schedule starting, and that was, you're talking like with the internet radio days, that was like in 2006. Okay. We made a schedule. We did Tuesdays and Thursday nights for like a couple of hours starting then. Okay.
Right.
Then a year later, after us being on this consistent schedule, we went to the YouTube convention, found out how to stream video, and then it was just the same thing until 2009 when we decided we're going to get a studio. Because at the time, like, I really wanted to, I was thinking, I was like 21, 22 years old, and my mother was kind of like bothering me to get a job, and I'm like,
how dare she?
Right,
it's like, get out of your room streaming. Like, little did she know at that time how this would all unfold for you. But
no, let me just say, I did have a job.
Right. Okay? But she was like, get a job, like get a career, get on the path, and start figuring out what the fuck you're doing with your life.
Exactly.
And little did she know. Right.
She also wanted to move to Florida. That never happened, but she wanted. So I'm like, okay, well, if this is the case, then I definitely want to get a studio, because I want to get into like recording bands. Yeah, right. Little did I know that was going to be a waste of time, because technology was going to move rapidly, and people would be able to just record on their own, just like we're able to do a podcast on our own. They'd be able to just do that. Get the home recording equipment became so much more affordable. And then you had tutorials on YouTube. People got really good at record.
Right.
So that really didn't work. I did have some clients, a lot of like local rappers and stuff like that. But anyway, like we moved into the studio, and that's when the light bulb went off. And Frank said, "It's like, why don't we just do like half studio, half radio station?" So we did that, and then a year after that, being in that studio over in Portchester, we opened it up to have other people do their shows, mainly because we realized that we weren't really making any money to cover rent. We were basically just like, we were paying rent.
Right.
Like we were just like paying rent and stuff. And that was kind of like, I mean, like not all of us, we had so many people involved. Like it was like me, Frank, Mike, and then we had another 2 partners that were, because we wanted to split the money.
Sure.
And some people, like not everybody had the money, not
everybody had the vision.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, so we're like, what are we doing? It's like, I think it's probably what's the smartest thing to do right now? Let's get some people, let's get some shows on. See, you know, like they can rent the space, do the show, but even more so, we can make it inclusive where we do like their intros for them and we engineer the show for them and stuff like that. And that's what we did, and it worked. I mean, it at least worked to keep the lights on, because I gotta tell you the truth. You know, it wasn't like some kind of lucrative business model. I'll tell you that.
It wasn't, but now where podcasting is now, I mean, these studios are pretty frequent, right? There are places that you can go and just plug in a microphone, and you could just not even plug in the microphone, just sit down and record a podcast, and they're doing all the engineering, everything for you. And that's what you guys were doing. That's what you provide. And it was kind of like this, again, cutting edge, ahead of its time space. And again, to your point, like, yeah, what are we going to do with all the other hours we're not here, right? Like, we're here Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing these shows, but there's a lot of other days of the week and other times to fill. And I don't know how early or how late we came onto the network. But it was just like this natural, like, oh, okay, like this makes a lot of sense. The space makes sense. You know, what you guys were providing at the time made a lot of sense, because I didn't have the equipment. I didn't have the knowledge, you know, I just knew I wanted to do radio. That was my, you know, that was my bread and butter. And it was like, oh, well, there's this network that's there that you can just kind of go and do this. And it just became like fun. It was just fun. It was exactly what you guys were looking to create.
The funny thing is, like, just to kind of go into how we met, my first point of contact with you was through your uncle.
That's right.
Because at the job that I worked in the summer of 2007, I know dates very well. At the job that I worked, he worked at the same job. And then, you know, I worked outside. He would come out for cigarette breaks. I talked to everybody, right? Because there's nothing to do there. Right. Nobody works at this place. Okay. Like, you know, right. So that's what people do. We just talk to each other. And you know, I was telling him about the rate, like how I do this, and I do the show, I do music. He's like, oh yeah, my nephew has that too, does stuff. Like, I'll link you up with him. I don't know if he gave me a card or something, but we connected. And I think you sent one of those demos.
Yeah, no, I did. I 100% sent one of those demos. I was like, here's the show that we're doing, and we just need kind of a home and a space to do it.
I remember listening to it. I remember Frank calling me into his room, says, hey, Vinny Brusco sent this demo. Let's listen to it. And we liked it. We were like, oh, wow, these guys are good. Like, I mean, they're professional. They're, you know, so we stayed in. I don't know what happened. I know nothing happened for at least a few years.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know what happened in between. Who knows? But and then I don't know how we circled back to each other. I don't remember that. But all of a sudden we were doing the show. And we were there for quite some time. We were doing the show pretty consistently. And there was a lot of turnover on our show where, you know, co-hosts and things like that changed and over time. But it was just, again, it was just so ahead of what was actually happening. And it's kind of bizarre to go back and listen to those demos, to see those demos. You know, a lot of the older stuff on the channel here is a lot of stuff from that show. And some of it is definitely cringeworthy. You're like, oh God, we said that? Like, you know, it wouldn't even be allowed nowadays. No. Like, it wouldn't be allowed nowadays.
I remember specifically, I'm going to be honest, when I went viral in 2014, we had a day where we combed through everything and unlisted and deleted shit and everything, because I was very like, all right, there are certain things that if it gets out could potentially fuck me.
Yeah.
You know,
and which is kind of fucked up, because listen, you know, again, it reflects the times, right? That's like penalizing Vince McMahon for the Attitude Era. If you're like, well, this is not acceptable by today's standards, so we're going to penalize you for all the tits and ass and all the suckets that, you know, D-Generation X said. You know what I mean? Like, there was something that it was a sign of the times that things were a little bit more shock jockey, and it was an Attitude Era. Also,
let me just say that the stuff that we went back and unlisted and all that stuff, now I would never do that. I would never go back and unlist.
Exactly. At
the time, I was just so, I don't know. I think I've had enough time to grow and realize that what was said back then, how we were, actually really wasn't that bad. It's just not going to fit in with
the social narrative and culture.
It's not.
I agree with you.
But I could also, I'm also confident enough to say that we never meant anything bad by anything we said or did, and it was never anything like crazy, like, you know, like no crazy racist things or
There was no ill intent.
No,
you know what I mean,
like,
there was it was
nothing.
just
Like,
again, it was just shock jock humor, and that's
Right.
what it was. It was like, listen, I remember Opie and Anthony doing the most offensive song contest, and some of the things that came, like you were listening to this on the radio at 3 o'clock on the way home from high school with my dad in the car. And I'm listening to like the most offensive songs, and they're dropping N-bombs, and there's just a cornucopia of things that are just not acceptable today. And it didn't make them bad people. It was just a sign of the times, and that's what was allowed, and that's what was accepted. But again, combing through those things, you would think, oh man, that's even this channel's like, oh man, maybe some of the stuff we said wasn't so nice. But again, you're young, you're immature, you haven't developed, you haven't really, put yourself in the world, right? You're kind of living this vacuum of youth where you think that you're insulated by the world and from the world.
right. Yeah, and you also don't expect it to I also didn't expect it to be seen by a lot of people either.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Like, how many people watch this? 10? Like,
Yeah.
whatever. So when did you, because obviously Zadalza was, you guys were doing your own thing, and then everyone kind of parted their own ways. When did you kind of shift to, because you and I've had this conversation, but when did you shift to like doing the YouTube stuff on your own? And when did like 10-second songs kind of hit you? I know the moment. I know you were in the shower.
Well,
Where all the great thoughts come in.
well, 2000, well, while this was developing with the radio show, I was also developing my voice and production, which did get better within about a few years. There were definite major improvements, and I started to make music, both cover material and original material, under the name Set the Charge. This was a new project that I figured would be a studio project between me and Frank that would be kind of half electronic, half rock, so that, I didn't have to rely on anyone but myself and Frank when I needed him. And he was cool with that because he didn't mind taking the back seat with that, because he had his main thing, which
Right.
was the radio stuff. So
Right.
this was my thing,
Right.
And one of the things that I paid attention to, specifically around 2008, when I started seeing people posting cover songs on YouTube, was how people were going viral. I remember one of the first things I noticed was that there were bands that were putting out music. They were putting out cover songs of Kanye West. Well, there was one, The Fray. They did a cover song of Kanye West, Heartless. And I remember I'm like, oh, we can do a cover song of Heartless, and I bet it would get 100,000 views like them. Well, we didn't get 100,000 views, but we did get it like at least a few thousand, which kind of was a sign that this kind of thing works. And that was also, do you remember a band called Framing Hanley? They did a cover of Lil Wayne's Lollipop.
No.
Like, this is at that time where people were doing, like, rock bands were doing covers of rap songs and stuff like that. It was a very in thing to do on the internet. And there were big bands that were kind of making their splash doing that. So I figured we would kind of get in on that. And that's what I tried to do. And I remember I had, in the summer of 2010, I did a Set the Charge version of Love the Way You Lie by Eminem. And that was my first viral hit.
Right.
But it wasn't viral, really. It, like, not even close. It was kind of like, viral, like it got 10,000 views, and that was the biggest thing I've ever seen. And then I think it got up to like 50,000 views, and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Obviously we got to keep doing this. So that's when I started doing cover songs of pop songs on the Set the Charge YouTube channel.
Right.
And I rode that wave for a couple of years, like at least a few years. Well, because it was 2010, and then 2014 was when I released the video on 10-second songs. So
What was the first song you released on 10-second songs?
Katy Perry's Dark Horse.
Right.
But so what happened was that's what I was doing. I had Set the Charge, was kind of developing through those years, while the network was doing its thing. And then it wasn't until it was 2012 that I was, I had a real shitty point in my life where I wasn't really working. I wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of business at the studio, and I wasn't making a lot of money. And I was also like, I remember being on unemployment. It was a pretty shitty time. So, but I did end up, once I started getting out of it and I got a new job, which I didn't want to do because it's like, it was such a conflict because here I had this studio, that I had, everything was all set up over here. And I wanted a life where I was working for myself because I had this place. I wanted to be there all the time.
Right.
But it just wasn't pulling the weight yet, so I had to get a job. And that's when I kind of had like this second wind where I started working another job or other jobs. And then on top of that, I made a Fiverr account, which at the time was brand new.
Right.
I know that people use Fiverr.
Yeah, now it's like
a trendy thing. People use Fiverr to make content on YouTube. Like, hey, I paid a Fiverr guy to do this.
Right.
So, but then I said, what can I do on Fiverr? I'll do, for $5. I came up with the idea of doing 10-second songs. So like, it's like, I'll do a song like 10 seconds in length, and I made the name 10-second songs. So then that's how that started. And in the intro video, I told people, yeah, I'll do it in whatever style you want. I don't, piece of cake. I'll just do whatever. Just give me a line that you want me to sing in whatever style.
Right.
Because I figured you're going to pay $5. If I don't get the style right, then
it's $5. Like, right. It's $5. We're not, you're not, losing the house over the $5 that you're going to send me to sing fucking Happy Birthday like Frank Sinatra. Like, exactly. It's not gonna break the bank.
Exactly. So I did it, but people loved it, and they also wanted to see me on video. So that was like an extra $20. And then it became a thing where it's like I was buried in orders and orders and orders. It got to a point where I got very it was too overwhelming to do both what I was doing what I was doing for work and that. And I did eventually, after a year, take a leap of faith and just go full time with it, because I thought, well, I have confidence in this thing, because if people really are willing, and I had people who were then, it got to a point where I was getting contacted on the side where like I had these big businesses that were these marketing businesses that would put on, they would put on showcases, and they wanted me as part of like their slideshows. So like, singing songs about whatever they were trying to teach. Right. And they were throwing me thousands of dollars for it, like 1,000 here, this and that. I'm like, oh, well, if this is happening now, clearly, eventually
there's a market for this.
Yeah, I'm going to be able to make a good chunk of money, like maybe doing something for a big brand or something.
Right.
I started thinking like maybe I'll get into jingle writing, like, so.
Yeah, listen, whatever.
I mean?
Right. It's like, you're musically inclined. This is something you're super passionate about. And now you're kind of, in its own way, you want to say the universe or whatever it is kind of leaving these small little breadcrumbs or these little hints, these little nods to you. It's like you're on the right path. It's going. Oh, yeah. Like you're going. Like, here's a couple bucks, here's a couple clients, here's a couple more dollars. Like, you're getting the feeling that this is unfolding before you, and now it's kind of like, okay, like I'm just gonna kind of keep on following this, because a lot of people, to your point earlier, the leap of faith, right? That moment of time where you're like, I'm going for this, right? And we kind of had this conversation.
It's always going to be a leap.
Yeah, we've had this conversation. That moment for you is kind of you said it was very distinct in your mind.
The actual leap to be a full-time
the moment.
musician?
Yeah, remember we had a conversation, and you're like, I distinctly remember the day I was like, oh, this is happening. Like, was that when you were the 10-second song thing, or was that the initial leap?
I think what you're referring to is when I made the video, when I made my first video on YouTube, I knew that while I was working on it, that was
that Katy Perry?
Yeah.
I want to play the Katy Perry. Hold on. Let's just play the Katy Perry.
Oh my God.
I don't know how the audio's going to
Y'all know what it is. Katy Perry, Dark Horse in 20 different styles. 10-second song. Let's rage. I knew you were gonna come to me. And here you are.
Sound exactly like her.
How hard is that?
What?
How hard is it to like to create the music, to create?
This was easy. because I wasn't trying to say. Come on, that doesn't sound like Queen. Let's be honest. That doesn't sound like Queen.
But it's got, listen, it's got it, right? It's there. Like,
can I just say, the reason why I think this worked was because of how do-it-yourself it was. And people probably can see that. First of all, I was a nobody. I came out of left field. I never had a single video on YouTube. No one ever saw me, at least presented like this. It was just so minimal, and the production was kind of like was done entirely by myself. It didn't sound extremely professional. I mean, maybe to some people it sounded professional, but I think a lot of people saw this and they saw it. It was fun. It was an idea they never saw executed like this before, because I could tell you there were not any videos like this at the time.
Right.
I mean, I inspired a lot of people after this. I can tell you that right now on YouTube. Like it created
a genre.
This was the music trend of 2014.
Right.
Okay. I think that's what it was. It was like, it's like, oh, this guy is cool. He's quirky. He's talented enough that he actually pulls it off. I did get a Queen feel from that. I did get him. I heard the little Michael Jackson riff in there, beat it riff. That was clever. He's keeping the melody of the song consistent. He is like, even though he may not sound like these artists entirely, but he is singing in a 3-octave range. Like,
there was, and again, being a novice to any of this stuff and being like, okay, from the outside perspective, right? And to your point, despite the fact you're saying it's homegrown, it's kind of nostalgic, it's got a very authentic feel to it. There is a talent level there that you're seeing. And although it's not finely tuned yet, there is something there underlying. You go, this guy if he's doing all of this, there's talent there. And it may not be like fine tuned, it may not be professional. There's a raw talent and a mindset to go along with that talent. And that goes back to, again, even early Zadala's days or whatever you want to say, like even with your brother, like there's something there that you'd say, okay, like there's something here that's just not fine tuned. It's raw, but it's good and it's authentic and it's quality.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's the big takeaway from that.
It was also, I could tell you, man, the mindset that I was in when I did it was great. I wasn't paying attention to what other people were doing. I can tell you right now that even back then, I'm sure there were a lot of people who were studying YouTube videos and like, what do I do? What's the trends? What's the trend? What do I hop on to now? Like, I was at a point in my life where I kind of let go into the universe, and I just trusted that things were going to fall into place whenever they did. I remember feeling, there were a couple of times I felt like, yeah, things are going to be okay. Things are just, I may not have all the things that I want. And at the time I thought I wanted was like, massive, like recognition and success in music, or to be a household name and to be like some kind of household name in rock music or something. That's what I thought I wanted. Over time, I realized that's not it's the feelings that you're chasing, not the actual things. But
when did you recognize that it wasn't the things and just the feelings? Was it something that you discovered early on, or was that like last week?
Way, yeah, over time, man.
Yeah,
over time, way over time. Like, because.
So what is the feeling that you think, like, what's that dragon that, whether it be, that you're chasing, or is it just the flow state? Is it just the fluidity of it, the authenticity of it? What is it that you would put your finger on that you are chasing, or anybody who's doing something that's artistically endeavored?
I think that people who are like looking for virality and looking for it, like just numbers and, massive success and fame, is there's got to be something in there. There's got to be a reason that's that has to do with like, I lost my train of thought.
It's all right.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think where to go with this, or like what I've, I'm kind of like.
Is it something where you're just chasing the feeling of being seen for your skill set, or is it something that you feel like you want to be seen for your endeavors, is it just kind of a dopamine reward system that's in place that's like, I want the validation of being authentic?
It's all validation.
Yeah.
I think every artist to some degree is a validation addict. And it's like whenever you see you hear interviews of some past rock stars. I remember seeing Kiss interviews or other big bands. They're 9 out of 10 of the times, a lot of rock stars were losers in school.
Right.
Didn't get the girls, didn't get attention, weren't cool and stuff like that. So of course they had these fantasies. They developed these fantasies of being a big star, to get back at people, to not get back, but also be the, it's
be the man.
Like a revenge thing almost in some respects.
Well, it's like the Michael Jordan chip on his shoulder from college, right? He's like, you have to, didn't make the first cut, for North Carolina. And it's like, he always, and I think that's why when people talk about like how great LeBron is or Kobe, I'm like, Jordan had a chip on his shoulder that you can't teach that. Like you need to be fucking devastated in order to kind of have that type of approach to things. Right. And it's not to say that you have to go that far, but to be that great at something, there's something else going on behind the scenes, deep subconsciously, in my opinion, that's driving you to be that great. Like there's something else going on. It might just be greatness, but chances are good it's something else deeply rooted inside.
Yeah, there's a need to prove something constantly. Sure. I think a lot of that was the driving force with me. It's like a need to prove something, and that's just the wrong stuff. But what was weird, that's the wrong stuff to kind of drive you, I think, because it doesn't really bring a good reward. Well,
is that even sustainable?
No.
Is that even like something that you like? No, because
you'll always want more. And even when you do reach a certain level of success, you'll have to keep it up, and you'll have to keep pushing to the next level. Because if you don't, you'll start feeling like a failure.
And that's a bit of a trap, especially now with YouTube, Instagram, the algorithms, the hashtags, the hearts, the likes, the shares, all of the things that are going on behind the scenes, and whether it be manipulated by, the corporations, or whether it be authentic, whatever it may be, you still are kind of chasing after this validation, this heart, this dopamine, the serotonin that's just like I'm being approved. My peers like me. And that's a drug in itself.
It is.
I mean, you've reached how many subscribers do you have on YouTube?
Do you
even count anymore?
Well, no, I'm at 3.4 million. But to be honest with you, it's stayed at that level for a while at this point. I feel like the amount of subscribers that I've gained in the past several years, it's definitely for me, it happened all at once. A lot of it happened all at once. It happened really fast. I exploded fast. I had 1 million subscribers within 8 months, and I grew for a period of time after that. But it was almost like it shot up, and then it still grew. It was still growing, but it was growing like this, and then it plateaued and it stayed there. You know,
right.
Whereas a lot of people who are on the internet, usually how it happens is it's a very slow crawl up,
right,
and they just keep going up. That's a good, healthy, I think probably a healthier way for something to go, because I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle all that big explosion at once.
What was the moment where you were like, holy shit? Like, was it like, what was the outer body experience moment that I refer this a lot. Like when I had my kids, it was so surreal. And I can think of a couple other events in my life that were so surreal that it didn't feel like I was even in this world. I was just omnipresent. Right. What was that moment for you when you're like, holy shit, like this is my life. Like this is reality now.
It started, well, I really went for it. I kind of I did have a feeling about the video, but the first video I put out, but I also pushed it over the edge too. because I knew it was good and I knew it was going to go viral. But
How did you know it was going to go viral?
I just had a feeling it was. Was
that the shower feeling that we talked about that time?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were just tell that story because I think it's fantastic because it's just like it is this leap of faith, this innate feeling, and you just tell that story real quick because you've shared it with me, and I think that that's a line of demarcation where things kind of now are different, like even internally.
Yeah, well, I was just having a good time. And I was thinking about, I was like, 10-second songs. I'm thinking about my business. I'm like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel for 10-second songs. I can post clips of all the little songs that I'm doing for people. And I can post compilations of all the variety of stuff I do. And that'd be cool. It'd be a cool, nice little new thing of mine. How can I also promote this to a bigger audience? Maybe I can cover a song. And I'm like, in the shower, I'm thinking, I'll cover a pop song and I'll divide it in different genres. I'm like, well, there's not enough genres. I got to do actual artists, specific artists. Like it'll be one section will be, the original part of the song. The next section is like another artist. And then Metallica. The next section is In Sync. Next section is like, I'm thinking about all of this. I'm like, huh. So, and it kind of, to me, like, when I thought about it, I'm like, wow, and then I can dedicate an entire channel just doing that. That's
right.
I even had the idea of dedicating the whole channel to I had every intention to keep doing it. I was like, I can, because and I thought, wow, this could fucking get a lot of views. This actually get it. I remember telling my mother after I got out of the shower, I said, I came up with an idea that's going to make me millions of views.
And what was her response? We're moving to Florida.
She didn't fucking, I don't know. She didn't give a shit. She didn't really she kind of just like whatever. But like, and then I let it, that was like in November. Okay. I let it go. Cause I was like, well, maybe I can do it to Wrecking Ball, Miley Cyrus. But at the time, like that song had already kind of passed, did its thing.
That's kind of a tough part about it too, right? You have to kind of find the sweet spot. And Mr. Beast talks about that. Like you have to find the sweet spot because then things are no longer relevant. And like, especially in this culture where it's like Netflix streaming, Amazon Prime, everything's on the go, quick. Your window of opportunity is very limited.
It is limited. It's limited, but I think that now it's maybe there's more of like that kind of sweet spot.
The shelf life, right?
But I think back then, even if I did Wrecking Ball, it would have went viral because the idea was so new,
right?
And because there wasn't as nearly, and I mean this, there was not nearly as much competition on YouTube than there is now. Because at the time I was ranked that year, I was ranked 900 on the entire site.
That's crazy.
So
like how many YouTube subscribers are there?
I don't
even know at this point.
But that's what I was that year. And now, my God, you can't
even count. Like I don't even know. I have no idea. We need a producer.
But anyway, so like, but I remember I let the idea go. And then I think it was like January or February, I started thinking about it again because I heard Dark Horse. A friend of mine, I remember that I was like, oh no, I started thinking about the idea again. I was like, and I talked to my friend, was at a hookah bar, and I was like, hey, my friend Tony, I was like, what song do you think I should do with this idea? He goes, you should do Dark Horse. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that song.
Fuck that shit. Yeah, why not? Like it's
because,
just
well, first of all, I don't even know why I said no because I barely even heard the song.
Right.
Okay. But then I saw that she uploaded the music video. And I'm like, when I saw the music video released for it and I heard it, I was like, okay, this is it. This is the song. And I got right to work. And it took me 2 weeks from when she put out the music video. Then I uploaded it March 14th. So like she put it out in like February and I uploaded it March 14th. So I just knew that it was something. I knew that it was something that was going to get passed around. And so what I did was, you're asking about the moment. I contacted, there were a bunch of different pages on Facebook that would share shit. There was one page that had like, and I went to one of like the smaller ones. I didn't shoot for the whale like, right away. I went to like this page called Life Buzz. Okay. There were a page called Life Buzz that had like 100,000 likes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had noticed that this page shared a video very similar, like, because at the time, this is the kind of stuff that there was a guy named Brian Hall who did Let It Go. That was another popular song at the time.
Sure.
The Disney song,
Of
Let
course.
It Go. He did Let It Go in Disney voices.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so this page, Life Buzz, shared his video. It was right around the same time. I was like, oh, if they shared this guy's video, they're gonna fucking love my video.
Right.
So what I did was I messaged them. I said, hey, I got a great piece of content for you to share. If you share it, just give it a chance, listen to it. If you share it, I'll even make like a free jingle for you guys or something.
Right. Right. Just put it out there.
And I remember it was a Tuesday night. I think they responded like an hour later and said, hey, you're right. This is actually really awesome. And we are going to share it tonight,
You're like, okay.
I was like, holy shit. I remember that was at the point I was like, holy shit, this thing is going to fucking go viral.
Wow.
I was like, yo, this is going to fucking blow up. and they're like,
was it just the confirmation from them? And like, it was like,
I knew that the minute this was shown to even just a small audience, it was going to trickle over. It was going to blow up. I just had a feeling it was, and there was just no stopping it. I just really felt like that was what's going to happen. And I remember,
and it's kind of crazy that you said, like, I just felt like that was going to happen, right? Like there was this instinctual feeling that was just around. You're like, here it is.
They responded. They said, yeah, I just
get that jingle ready.
They said, I just want to let you know, like, that, like, I remember they said something to the effect of, going forward. I mean, that's a really, what the way that you approached us is a great way of, just getting, making progress in, like, in life or something. I don't know. They kind of gave like a deep thing.
Well, listen, there's something too, and I'll just bring it into my world. When I was looking to go into radio, right, and I had this opportunity in Waterloo, Iowa, and I flew out there with my wife, then girlfriend, and my dad, and I had like complete culture shock. And I had the job at an overnight metal station. I mean, now it's like overnight metal station. Shit, yeah, sign me up. Shout out Michael Cross, the program director at the radio station. Took a liking to me and we just hit it off. But I remember coming back and not being able to move to Iowa. I can't do it. Like I couldn't do it. And I remember reaching out to every radio station on the East Coast and being like, let me say one word an hour and I'll be happy. And right behind you is a framed picture of my first radio check, because I was like, and it was just literally the cut of my jib that got me in the door to interview. And they're like, all right, we like your style, kid. Like, it was like $40, dude. Yeah, it's nothing impressive.
No, I'm trying to see the date.
Oh, I don't remember. Should be down there somewhere.
Okay, it's 2009.
Yeah, 2000. There you go. So it was just the cut of my jib and the approach. I was like, I'm willing to do anything for this at this point, right? Because I didn't want to go to Iowa, but it was almost my only option. It was like, I gotta go to Iowa. But then they gave me an opportunity. I'm super indebted to that. And I remember, like, a picture came up. It was like 13 years ago today. It's a picture of me like in front of the microphone. I was like, holy shit, this has always been there, and it brought us a great sense of pride to me. But it's kind of that same thing. It's like, you went for it. Like, you put yourself out there, you approached the situation, you faced it head on, and you threw it out there. And like, whatever comes of it, comes of it. You had this feeling that it was going to be what it became. But the response of them being like, yeah, this is the way you go about it. Like, take that leap of faith.
Yeah. And so they put it out. And I remember they kept messaging me saying, this is doing really well. Like, it's like, this engagement in this post is like up 60%. I don't know. There's some shit they said. I don't remember. But anyway, I expected the next day for it to be, I don't know. Actually, I didn't know what to expect because I've never went viral. I never truly went viral.
Right.
My mind was, I thought that viral for me was going to be like, I'm going to get 400,000 views in a week.
Right.
That was viral
Right. What is there an official number to going viral?
There isn't really an official number. It really depends, you know.
Right.
But that would have been viral to some extent. It would have been.
Sure.
But the next day, it climbed to like 10,000 views. Okay, but the comments in the video, I'll never forget.
Oh
them.
boy.
No, dude. No. You think I'm going to say something? There were a couple of negative comments.
Sure, naturally.
But most of the comments were like prophetic.
Right.
Most of the comments were people saying like, yeah, I'm here before this blows up.
That's cool.
Like, you know, this is going to go extremely viral. This is going to blah, 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 blah. There were people that were just saying it. Like, so it wasn't just me. I remember like people like, you know, putting even friends of mine saying, this is going to make you famous. Blah, 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 blah. It was a weird feeling. It was really strange. A lot of like energetic stuff was going on. And that next day it only went to 10,000 views. And I kind of was a little disappointed because I'm like, come on.
Like, but also
like,
all the hype that's coming around too.
Right.
Everyone's reaching out to like, this is it. This is it. Here it is. And you're like, oh, 10,000.
Yeah. So I was saying to myself, come on. I said, this is completely contradicting the energy that I'm feeling here. Like the energy saying this is going to blow up, but this is not blowing up. So I really just like said, you know what? I had a moment where I was like, you know what? Fuck it. You know, I did what I did and that's it. Like I got 10,000 views. Okay, fine, whatever. So I went back and I worked on some songs I had to do for some people and went, and I remember it was like a lunch break. I kept my phone in the other room.
Right.
Went to my phone. And I told you the story. There was like over 100. That was the first thing I noticed. It was weird. Everything happened simultaneously. It was almost like a fucking terrorist attack or something.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it.
You know,
it's just because you're just inundated with, like, again, it's that moment where it's so surreal. It's that you're like, it's out of body. It doesn't even make sense. And you're like, wait, what is again, when I had my children, I always talk about this, but like I was waiting for the doctor to be like, and cut. All right, we're going to give Vinny the baby. Mom, you're going to lay there. Doctor, come here. We're going to, fingerprint the feet and scene, go. And it was because it feels so it's just not the norm. It's just not the norm of your everyday life and existence. So when you're in those moments, they stand out to you, right? It's like a carved out moment that will flash before you on your deathbed. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember that one. It'll never go away.
That's spot on, I think, for a lot of things. Because that's exactly what, like, I noticed that these, like, it was just crazy. Like I've never seen anything like that. Because I up until that point, I had notifications on my phone all the time. Because who the hell was going to get in touch with me? I noticed. First thing I noticed is like I see my email. Email was 100 plus. 100 plus. I went to Facebook, and I had a couple of messages. One from a producer from AGT. Another from a friend of ours. And a friend that we used to play with in locally and with bands, and he said, "Dude, you just made Reddit." 2 seconds later, Frank Intercom goes, "You are on the front page of Reddit, right? You're number 2 on Reddit." Mike calls me.
Right.
It says, "You're on E-Bombs World. You're on fucking you name it, like every single like site that we grew up."
Yeah, right. E-Bombs World was the biggest thing. Yeah, college humor. Everything. Right. Barstool before it was Barstool.
I was on everything. And I remember like the next day I got contacted by Rolling Stone to do an interview. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Is this a joke?
Is this thing?
Exactly. Is this a joke? I really did feel like it was. It felt.
You feel like you're being punked.
It felt like a joke, because that's
fucking crazy.
That's how viral it went. Like, and that's not even half of it. Then you had Corey Taylor tweeting, "Who is this guy? I want to hang out with him." Like you had fucking Boyz II Men saying they wanted to take me on tour.
Right.
You had Tech Nine, the rapper that I did in there, that was like, wanted to meet. Of course, like people they say that.
Of course, right.
And
Lincoln Park got involved.
That was a few months later because then I got signed to a multi-channel network, which is basically these multi-channel networks. They're kind of like they're like record labels for YouTubers or for social media personalities. And they optimize your channel and stuff like that. But I was lucky with the MCN that I signed to, because I signed to a really good one. I'm sure not everybody's everyone's got something to say about MCNs, but I got right in when they had very few people under their belt, and I kind of got grandfathered into really good splits,
right?
Like AdSense splits,
Sure.
and stuff like that. And at the time, Lincoln Park, their YouTube, their social media and YouTube was under this MCN.
There you go.
Okay. So
it's like you're both on the same record label.
Exactly.
At that point.
We were both on the same record label, and my talent manager for my channel manager said, you know what, I'm going to pitch you for a collaboration with Lincoln Park, like a kind of like a marketing collaboration where you cover one of their songs to promote their album, and they share. I said, what are the chances we can get them in the video? Like, well, I'll see if I can like maybe get them in the end tag or something like that. And he managed to do it.
Yeah.
The team loved the idea. They're really smart, man.
And this is like prime Lincoln Park.
It was prime Lincoln Park in the golden age of YouTube.
Right.
Like the last year of the golden age, I think, like 2014, like I really got right in by the skin of my teeth.
Right.
Because like they had just put out, I think, The Hunting Party.
Okay.
And that's what they were promoting.
All right, so maybe not prime Lincoln Park.
It wasn't prime Lincoln Park. No. It was not.
This wasn't
prime.
Hybrid Theory post, but still, again, it's Lincoln Park nonetheless.
It was not prime Lincoln Park, but they never really stopped being prime. They were never a band that lost relevancy.
I agree.
They stayed on top. Like, they're one of those juggernaut acts like Metallica that just fucking stayed on top.
Right.
And that was a big deal because they had like 64 million likes on Facebook, and they were gonna absolutely blast it all over their social media.
Right.
Like they were taking a real effort into blowing this video up. Like when I did, and that was at a time on Facebook before they even launched Facebook video. Dude, so you're thinking like, Facebook actually, imagine a time where Facebook didn't.
Imagine a world where Facebook.
Imagine a world where Facebook was young again.
Right.
They still had youth on the platform.
Right.
And it was before they choked the reach of YouTube links.
Right.
You can post a link on Facebook and it actually fucking went someplace.
Right.
That's exactly what they did. They took my video, put it right on their Facebook, the link, they pinned it.
Right.
Whole thing. Chester's on the end tag. I got like 84,000 subscribers in one day.
That's
off that video.
That's nuts.
In one day.
That's nuts. That's nuts. So you have the moment, your phone's blowing up, the emails are kind of coming through, and now you're realizing like, here we are. We're on the dark horse, if you will.
Pornhub contacted me to do something for them. I think like a song, a jingle for them. And at the time I was like, you know what, let's kind of hold off on that because
hold off on Pornhub.
Because I think that right now, if I'm getting mainstream attention, I was on Z100 News. That's why I wanted to go back and kind of like maybe get rid of some shit.
Rightfully so.
Because it wasn't just some like World Star Hip Hop shared my video. It was like I was getting
Rolling Stone.
I mean, like family audiences liking my shit.
Right.
Like, I actually had a lot of people that were letting their kids watch my stuff, and I didn't want to go and fuck it up. Like, it was weird. I'm telling you, man, it was very mainstream. What was I saying?
We were talking about the moment where your phone's blowing up, you're getting the emails, and now you're kind of like, okay, this is happening. So like, what was your thought process, or did you have like a game plan in place to say, this is what I'm going to do next?
Not.
No.
The only game plan I had was to just do
game
another
plan
one.
I have is fucking have some fun.
No,
Do you
I didn't have
regret-
some-
do you,
I wasn't
like-
having fun. You fucking kidding me? I was a nervous wreck. I wanted it to keep going. I wanted it to amount to something. I was like, I saw it as like, when you go that viral, I mean, you want it to fucking turn into something even more, like, a little bit more solid than that. Like I saw it as like my shot. You know what I mean? Like I didn't, when you're a musician and you're looking to hit it big, you're looking to have any kind of success as a musician, there's always a part of you that really doesn't believe it's ever going to happen. So when you get to that point where it's like, holy shit, this is going to happen for me. It's like it's either you relax and just, play it cool, which I tried to do, but it's very difficult when you're in that kind of position. Or you scramble around to try to find a way to piggyback off what you did and figure it out. I think I all things considered, with the lack of experience that I had with a situation like that, and my brother coming in to help and Gypsy coming in to help, and Gypsy's another friend of ours.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast before.
I think all things considered, we did the best we could. I did the best I could in navigating that, because I really didn't think I was ever going to. I mean, I thought, I honestly, as far as followers, I thought that maybe I would be ecstatic if I got 100,000 followers or something
In a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, that just
in the lifetime of the channel.
Yeah, that seemed like, that seems like, wow, that's fucking crazy. But even 1 million followers to me was way out of my expectation.
Yeah.
Way out of my expectation. So
it starts taking off. You're kind of like, all right, we're on the train now. Like was there a thought of like, all right, this one hit, leave it alone and write it out? Or was it just like, no, this is what I'm doing?
I got into this thing where it's like, I wanted to time everything right. I didn't want to go and kill it. I didn't want to overdo it. I was afraid of overdoing it. I didn't want to like turn anybody. I was very nervous about it. A lot of my actions.
Was it like fear, like the nervousness, like fear that it might go away? Or
there was a lot of that, man. I was constantly afraid that it was going to burn out, and it will eventually burn out. It will. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the natural way that things go. So like, I'd be lying if I said that, I was having the time of my life and I was just like, really just basking in it, enjoying and just doing what I wanted to do. No, I was thinking like, how do I make this? How do I just keep this going? I mean, there's momentum. I had people constantly telling me, you got to strike while the iron's hot. You got to strike while the iron's hot.
And that's hard because, again, you're in this position where you've never been. This is uncharted waters. You've never been here before. Whoever these people may be, whether they be professionals, friends, family, whatever it is, you're gonna hear, at the very least, you're gonna hear their advice. You're gonna hear them out. You're gonna listen to it, and it's kind of up to you to intrinsically say to yourself, like, I just have to go with what got me here, right? And that was just being myself.
And that's
showing up.
Very difficult to do. I tried so much. I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Oh man,
that's great. But yes, I guess staying authentic to yourself.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, when you've got millions of eyes on you, it is difficult to relax and pretend like no one's watching. It's very difficult. I mean, and I have said, I remember that so many times back then. I got to give myself some credit. Have to give myself credit, because back then I do remember saying, like, dude, I was like, yes, you had this viral hit. It blew up way bigger than you thought it would, but you gotta calm down. I would tell myself, you gotta relax. You got to find a way to relax and let go and get back to what you were doing before.
What was happening that you felt that you weren't in that space anymore? Was it just the amount of views? Was it just the amount of recognition?
There were a lot of things that were changing. If I'm going to I'll get a little personal.
Sure.
A little personal without going into too much details, but it's important because this contributed to where I was in my head. At the time, before I went viral, I kind of was like getting into a relationship,
right, with
a girl that for the first time I was like really into. We really clicked. I really liked this girl, and she became kind of like a muse for me in my music. And she was a really good friend. And obviously I haven't talked to her in a while. We're not on bad terms, but what happened was there was a complication. She revealed something to me that I couldn't be down with.
Okay.
I'm just going to put it that way.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Because of privacy.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
There was something I wasn't comfortable with.
Sure.
Okay. And it ruined the entire relationship.
Sure.
And when that magic deteriorated, I felt like I was spiraling simultaneously as I was going up with the YouTube. As I was gaining all of this recognition on the outside, I was blowing up. And it was astronomical, like, internet fame for music. I was one of the biggest music channels that year. My personal life just felt very like the things that I was on a high about, the things I felt good, I felt wholesome about, were deteriorating and spiraling, and I didn't have a grip on it, and I felt like I didn't feel as good as I felt, because that was such there was a real balance. That's the word. There was a real balance before things blew up that I really honestly believe was why I blew up, because I was in balance.
You were harmonious.
I was really in balance. I had a very healthy.
But this is before things blew up. So do you think
Yes.
that you needed, in order, and this is going to sound a little bit woo-wooey, but in order for the YouTube or the external world to blow up, do you think that you needed to have the counterbalance internally? Like, did you need that yin and that yang
to be able to take it on? Yeah. That's why, like, I almost felt, I remember I told you once that when I was working on Dark Horse, and I had like this voice. It was not an audible voice, but it was almost like this feeling like, are you ready for this?
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, like
I remember you telling me.
Are you sure you're ready? Like almost like there was a voice that said, "You're gonna get it, but are you sure you're ready for this? Are you ready for this?" And I said, "I'm fucking ready for this."
Unequivocally, you said it.
Yeah, I'm ready for this. But I feel like it was almost like Anakin Skywalker saying, "I'm
sure."
ready for this,
You were supposed to be the chosen one.
I feel like it was like, I'm ready no matter what. It's like fueled with passion and rage. Like, I'm fucking ready for this. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine. It's good. It's gonna really throw you for a loop.
Wow.
It's going to throw it. It's going to be an impact. And it might kind of
disrupt the apple cart.
Yeah, it's gonna put you off balance. It put me off balance. I'm not, so I know I mentioned the relationship. I don't want to make it seem like, because the relationship ended, everything went up. No, that was the catalyst, right? Like that was, like you said, like, if she was your muse in that regard, if she was kind of this, part of your life that was, where they're keeping you in order, for that to go somewhat sideways while all this other things are transpiring, it would make sense that, it's going to fuck up your internal compass a little bit. Yeah, it did. And then, like then it just felt, then it also, I'm not going to lie and say like, it was, it was like, I stayed humble through the whole thing. I definitely told myself, look, there were a couple of times where I had to check my ego and say, look, you got to calm down. I mean, but there were a lot of times where I beat my chest and I let it get my head inflate my ego a lot, like way more than I should have. But I got to tell you, man, that's in anyone who's in a situation like that, it's going to happen, and you got to make a real effort to keep yourself on solid ground. But even when you do, there's just something going on chemically that you have no control of. There's something going on. Like I mentioned, I may have mentioned this to you at one point. I mean, if you're on like Instagram and you have like a post that does well, and you got like, somebody that you admire likes your shit, and you're like, oh, it gives you a feeling.
Listen, Rich Roll, who is a big podcast, I mean, big guy, reposted, like I posted like, oh, great podcast. And there's a screenshot of like one of his recent podcasts, and he reposted it. And I was like, all right. Like I felt like, I was like, all right, fucking Rich Roll. Like, that's a big, for me, it was like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? So yeah, like for the average, we'll call average person, for lack of a better term, who's not an influencer, say, right? You get 40, 50, 108, like whatever the number is, no matter what, that's a dopamine hit. Like you see that heart light up, you see fucking like, comment, like whatever it is, there's something, to your point, chemically going on that you are not in control over. It's like Amazon Prime, right? It's just this dopamine reward system that's intrinsically in place that keeps us going, keeps us fueled, keeps us, motivated. But at the same time, it's this trap because you are now addicted or chasing those likes, those hearts, those comments.
It's a never-ending cycle. Now picture that going viral the way I did.
Right.
It's a nuclear bomb.
Right.
And you get addicted to that. That's like being addicted to catching lightning in a bottle for eternity.
Right.
How the hell do you do that?
Right.
You can't do that. You can't. Like, I'm never going to go viral again. I know.
Would you even want to?
No. There's a part of me that does.
What part of you? The ego?
No, there's a systematic addictive wire, like the wiring, the pleasure centers in my brain is wired in such a way that it's like it's telling you, you really want that, you need it, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's a part of me, but the reasonable part of me, the one that's like speaking right now as me, does not want to go viral ever again.
Wow.
I don't want to. There's clearly because it's the problem with that is that I'll tell you the truth. Like it's for me at least, and this is a very, very deep subject for me because it has to do with validation and sources of validation, and where one source doesn't suffice, you go and try to overcompensate through other sources, and this is how you develop problems and addictions in other areas. And I'm not going to go into full detail.
Sure.
But the thing, what the hell was I saying?
Not wanting to go viral again, and the validation piece of that.
Yeah, the problem with that is that you really lose sight. Like it really becomes a thing where you only care about going viral again. You only care about you start to create your entire. You start to see yourself as only valuable when you have that thing, which in and of itself had nothing to do with what I was bringing to the table in the first place, which was the passion for music and my craft. And it's very easy to fall into the trap of chasing this thing that is so far from what you wanted in the first place. It's very easy.
Well, it goes back to our earlier point of like this feeling that you get, right? And putting that feeling on external resources and putting that feeling on things that are not you, right? Whether it be subscribers, downloads, do you even have downloads anymore? Views, a car, a house, a certain number in your bank account, a watch, whatever it is.
All sources of self-esteem become that. For me, that's what happened with me. I was like, my entire source, there was no sources. My entire source of self-esteem was how I did on the internet, how I did on, that's what my worth was. I equated my worth. I became only as good as I was presented on of this imaginary world, that people follow on the internet, social media.
And now and when you went viral, this is pre-Instagram.
I mean, Instagram
early days, if anything, at very best.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
I have a horrible sense of time frame because I'm like, this is peak Lincoln Park. You're like, no, it's not. I'm like, this is Instagram wasn't a thing. Like, it was very up and thriving. I have a horrible time frame.
Instagram was around for a long time.
Was it?
Yeah, Instagram is.
But was it what it is now?
2011.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I couldn't even tell you.
2012, like 2014. I mean, it wasn't what it is now.
Okay. All right. So that's fair. So my assessment's correct. It wasn't what it is now.
No. But I mean, like most of the stuff that was put on Instagram was like, were pictures. Yeah. Right. That was the Instagram's thing. And then, but it started to borrow from Snapchat. It got stories from Snapchat.
Right.
It got and then TikTok came out after Vine. TikTok.
Remember Vine? Yeah.
TikTok is the thing now, like 100%. Even for like musicians, it's like the main thing. I grew so much bigger on TikTok than I ever did on Instagram. Instagram is weird. Like I get stuck. I'm like stuck at the 100K mark. I made it to 100K.
Yeah, like, all right.
And then I posted a video of me in a hospital gown, and I'm back at 99.9. People are like, oh, because you know what
he
happens?
gets surgery? Fuck him. He's human? No.
You want to know what happens? Because like what happened is like the algorithm stopped favoring me for whatever reason. It wasn't showing people shit. So when you post a picture of yourself in a hospital gown, it attracts some attention. Right. So all of a sudden it busted wide open. It accessed all of my followers, and they're all like seeing this shit. And I guess it reminded some people they didn't want to see me anymore. So they're like, oh, this guy's still around. He's in a hospital gown. Fuck this guy. Get him off my feed.
Hope he's dying in the hospital.
Yeah, I guess so. So
that's fucking funny.
On TikTok though, I've got like, it's so easy. They have a very generous algorithm, so it's easy to get a lot of views on TikTok and a lot of followers. I have like over like 220,000 on TikTok.
That's crazy.
But but the problem is with TikTok is that because it's so easy, you have a lot of people who think they're more important than they are.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
oh my God.
That's part. Well, that's part of the Instagram, Facebook, podcast culture, right? Like, and listen, for whatever reason you're doing these things, whether it be validation, it's your artistic endeavor, it's your flow, it's your whatever it is, it's your passion. There is a sense of, again, validation that you're looking for, right? I think all artists, no matter what you are, photographer, musician, podcaster, you paint on canvas, there is this system in place that validation, there is value to that. There is something there that is needed to keep you going, right? And it can't be all internally navigated, right? There has to be this external reward system in place that says, I am on the right path. I am doing something. There is something here. Because again, it is a reward system that seems to be intrinsic.
Yeah. But now I'm at a point where I'm working really hard to just get to find ways to get my validation for myself. I really have to, because
what's kind of reconnected us in this, this next chapter of our friendship is you posted something with the 10-second songs version of you. 10-second man, and you had the great line of what was the line?
The one that you like. You can say whatever you want. Oh no, what did I say?
I wish I had it queued up.
You can say what you want, and no one's gonna judge you. And if they do, fuck them. You're a crazy fuck with a cape and a curly mustache.
So you post this video of you having this seemingly conversation with this alternate version of yourself, right? Yeah. And in that moment I saw that, and I don't know what it was that I recognized or felt or the camaraderie there, but I was like, oh, I see exactly what he's going through. Like I saw it. I was like, right. Oh, and I reached out to you like, pretty
I remember
instantly.
that. Yeah, I remember.
And I was like, I don't remember exactly what I text you, but it was just something along like, hey man, what's up? Long time hopeful as well. If you ever need whatever. And I've listen, I've been on my own personal journey as well, whether it be with life coaching and just, a lot of meditation, sensory deprivation, and a lot of like intrinsic thinking. And I recognized in the moment when I saw that video, it was like, you were playing this and again, I played it out in podcast form, but you were playing out this internal dialogue of the self, in this moment, and I was like, that was like, I've done that. And I know where he is on his journey. And if I could lend anything to someone, it's my duty to do so. So I reached out.
I was right at the very beginning of it. I was not like, I definitely started to feel like, I needed some kind of, because I was at a point where there were so many things in my life that I swept under the rug that I was like, you know what, I really have to find a way to be a whole person, because I'm getting older and I've been emotionally unavailable for many years, didn't have a partner because I made it that way. Like there were a lot of things that I wasn't dealing with. I was allowing myself to be reckless in so many different ways. There were so many things that I just allowed myself to just not, I was like, you know what? I am the way I am. I'm not going to work on it. I'm just going to sweep it under the rug and fuck it,
Right.
But it kept me so stagnant and just feeding off this one little thing for sustenance, which was never going to be
enough,
never going to be enough. So, and that was everything that I was doing on the internet and the validation I got from it. So that was my breaking point last year. I decided to change my channel name to my name. The big part of the reason was because I felt like I needed to change. I felt like I needed to rebrand and kind of put everything under my name. I didn't intend to stop doing the kind of content that I was doing, but I wanted to just put everything under my name because that was like the start of me wanting to change. And I didn't like at the time, what I didn't realize was that, I was like, I was very I can't blame myself because this was like the first time that I was like kind of waking up and trying to make a change in my life. And I thought that making a change on the internet, making a change in my outward appearance was the way to go. Because again, I had up to that point, it was everything to me. I had identified myself with whatever I put on screen. So that must be what needs to be changed, you know what I mean? So like,
right.
But what I realized over time was that was not even close to what needed to happen. What really needed to happen was I had to take one little thing at a time in my own personal life, not on the screen, off the screen, and start doing some, start doing some stuff, start showing up for myself and making some other sources that where I can feel some self-worth that don't have to do with music, that don't have to do with whatever's on the internet. And I went to work and it was very uncomfortable. It's been very uncomfortable, but I look back to even who I was this time last year, and there really is a difference. I mean, sometimes I can't, I feel like I can't tell, and then I'll see something, or I'll see like an old post, and I'll know exactly where my mind was at the time that I did it, and I'll be like, oh man, I'll cringe. I'll be like, yeah, I'm glad I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And that journey inward is something that I think most people, I would dare to say all people, interface with at some point of their lives, right? And it's not easy, right? That journey towards self-discovery and kind of, I don't want to say reinventing yourself, but shedding those old skins, those old ways, those old thinking habits, and whatever they're rooted in. The majority of it is fear, right? And it's the majority of it comes from, you want to go childhood, you want to go whatever you want to go to, but there's something there intrinsically that is deeper than we even know, right? We lose ourselves somewhere along the path of life, and then there comes a point where it's like, oh, what am I doing? Who am I? What is going on? And this, like, it's almost this reintroduction to, well, so your child self, your former self, the best version of yourself. But in that moment when I saw you doing that, I was like, I know where he is. I know exactly where he is on this journey. And it's having been there and experienced that in my own version of it. It's almost my duty to be like, hey man, like as someone who's a life coach, or as I go by journeyman for hire, it was almost like, yeah, I got to reach out to this dude. And we reconnected, and we've had so many amazing conversations.
A lot of great conversations. You know, an introduction to stoicism.
So, right, which is something that we both dive into quite often.
The men's group, which I'm glad that I went to, and I've been going to as much as I can, that you do, because it gets me out of my comfort zone. I mean, even coming here, I'm at a point now, like, well, the other part of it for me is that I've had a lot of anxiety, like, you know, the kind of anxiety that would keep me in my safe place, which is like not far from home type thing.
Right.
So like I was very agoraphobic in high school. So if I wasn't going, like, that's why, like, I mentioned how it's like, you know, I mentioned how I did everything with my brother and Frank, because they were my safe people.
Right.
Like if I wasn't with them, then, like, you know, I probably, you know, who knows where my life would be if I spread my wings and if back then I learned to spread my wings and just fly and do the things that I was afraid to do. You know, with the kind of ambition that I had and the talent that was definitely there that just needed to be developed. I mean, I could have been a who knows, like, you know what I mean?
But could you, like, it would have gone against your nature at the time, right? And it wouldn't have led you to where you are now.
Yeah, everything has its time. You know, that's the thing. That's what everything is for a reason. There's a reason I am the way I am. There is a reason I am, and I really do believe that there's a reason for when things happen too. I believe that. I've come to definitely believe that, you know, but really, I mean, I like, for me, I'll tell you the truth. A big thing with me is that I find it, one of the big things with me, and this kind of ties in with everything, is if I really, if I'm going to go down to the core of all of the reason why I do things and why I've fallen into certain addictions and all this stuff, is because I can't sit with myself and do nothing.
On that wall is my favorite quote by Basil Pascal. It says, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone.
That's it. Dude,
that is.
Let me tell you, but there was I had a very important day a couple of days ago. I got myself a new phone. I had a very rough day the 2 days before that, and I'm like, okay, because I went to the, like, you know, I had an ear surgery. That was something that was sitting with me for a few months. Long story short, diagnosed with something called cholesteatoma. It's a skin cyst that was growing underneath my right eardrum. They had to take that out. This thing was taking up my entire inner ear canal. They took that shit out. They took out my eardrum. They made a new one out of my cartilage and graft in my ear. And I was sitting with that for months and months and months. So I had to really, really calm myself down with that. And then I started having problems with my stomach. I'm not going to get into that, but I went to the gastro.
What's that details?
Yeah, I went to the gastroenterologist, and she's like, you know, you got to go and a couple of days ago, you have to go and get another blood test. I have taken at least 7 blood tests so far this year. Okay.
Jesus.
You have to get another blood test to search for celiac disease. If you have that. I don't have celiac disease. I took the blood test fine, but, like, you know, I'm a little stressed out. I'm like, you know, if I do this, then I might have to get a colonoscopy in a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, this is happening again. When is this ever going to stop? So I was stressed out. I had a new list of things to do that I wanted to disappear or go to sleep.
Right.
I didn't want to do any of it.
Right. It's easier. It's easier to just fucking turn it off, shut it all down, burn the fucker down, call it a day.
I said, you did not get through the past few months to do this. So I made the appointment to get the blood done, and my phone, the other thing, I was like, what's bothering you right now? What are you avoiding? What are you avoiding right now that you're kind of drifting off course? Well, I was avoiding the fact that, you know, my phone, it was like it was running out of space. Like I was at a point, you know, like when your phone's at a point where you literally have nothing on it, but it still is out of space.
You have to delete like apps. You're like deleting every single thing that you can.
You're offloading apps.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's over. Like I gotta get a new phone. So I said, I got my blood taken. I went right to go and go to the AT&T store, and I got a new phone. While I was waiting for the phone to transfer over, he says, well, you got 30 minutes. This is in Greenwich. It's like, you got 30 minutes. You can go and, like, if you want, you can leave and come back. I'm like, what am I going to do?
Right.
Cause like, I'm thinking about,
yeah, but this,
I don't have my phone.
Right. But this is something that for someone who doesn't deal with anxiety, someone who doesn't interface with this part of them, this is just like, all right, yeah, I'm going to get blood work done. I'm going to get like, this is almost, this is run of the mill things. But for someone who struggles with being alone, anxiety, or whatever it is, these are monumental things. Like I remember at one of the men's groups, not to put you on blast, but you text me like, hey man, and like the vibe I got from your text was, I'm not going to show. Like I felt the energetic vibe, and I was like, I could feel him looking for a way to back out of this. Don't give him the chance. And I remember, like, I think I called you. I was like, hey man, where are you? Like, I think, and we got you there, and then you even said it in the meeting. You're like, I was this close to just not coming. I was like, I know you were. Like, I felt the energy coming through the fucking phone.
I said that in the 2 meetings that I showed up. I said in both meetings, I didn't want to come, but I'm glad I did. It's great, because it's great to to go and do that. Because you're right, it's not to go into the 8, because I didn't want to wait for this and that. I ended up having a conversation with the guys about YouTube and stuff like that, and then I said, you know what, I don't. It's like, you can go and do something. It was right. It was like at lunch, and like, and I'm like, I could go and find someplace to eat and sit down and eat by myself, which is weird. I don't do that.
Right.
Okay? And I did. I forced myself to go, and I went to one of the restaurants there, and I sat on a seat by the sidewalk, sitting there with no phone, and it was uncomfortable. Like,
yeah, that's weird.
I'm telling you.
Well, like I could do that.
I force myself.
That's great.
I just force myself to, like, look, it's like, well, you're sitting by yourself. Like, you've got no choice. You don't have a phone. You got to sit here with your hands like this. I was actually wondering, what do I do with my hands? I was sitting there like this, and I was just sitting there watching people walk by, and it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of times where I had waves of anxiety come up, and I had to calm down from it, come back down. But after it was all done, it gave me a boost. It gave me a real boost, a lot of endorphins. And I'm just reminded again and again, the things that I don't want to do are the things that are good for me. Like the things of, like, me getting out and even just doing things for myself that I'll put off because I don't want to wait to do it, and all this stuff. Like, I had to get a prescription for acid reflux, and that was a pain in the ass. Like, what I did? That was like a funny thing too. I went to CVS. I waited online for 15 minutes. There's signs all over the place that says, "To our dearest customers, sorry, we're extremely short-handed."
Right.
Okay. Get there, and the prescription wasn't even ready for another 15 minutes.
Right.
And I left because I had to go get my blood taken.
Right.
And I left because I was like, I didn't want to wait anymore. So I got in the car, and I realized I got time to kill before I have to go get my blood taken. I could have just waited.
Right.
What's the difference? Because here's the thing. I always have to be on the run.
Always have to be moving, distracted.
I have to feel like I'm doing something, but it doesn't make a difference. If I'm stuck in traffic, or if I'm waiting 15 minutes on the side, what I did was I was like complaining in the car. I was like complaining to myself. I said, I have a reserve of patience. I said something like, my
reservoir of patience is running out.
I got this reservoir of patience that's only good for a certain amount of time, but still, somehow, I need more patience after it's gone. Like, I never have enough patience.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm trying so hard, blah, blah, blah. So I let myself complain. And then after I let it out, I said, well, wait a minute. Why did you even need to dip into the reservoir of patience? What were you fucking going to do anyway?
Right.
You were standing there for 15 minutes, and then now you're driving around for 15 minutes. Okay. Good job.
Right.
It's the same shit.
But
you're taking your body everywhere you go.
Right.
It's like, so that's what I'm saying. Like I'm paying attention to these things. Like I'm trying to navigate, like, trying to tell myself to just calm down, like be
present.
Right. And
be
just,
present.
Like patience is a big thing for me. That's like a big challenge is to learn to be patient in situations. Like I've got none, naturally it's like I'm very easy to just
yeah, no. And I think that again, I think that a lot of people actually do operate that way. I mean, I do for sure, right? And I've learned to develop patience. Children have definitely added to my reservoir of patience, but it really does circle back to that, being alone and being in that space by yourself and allowing, like, I'm a big people watcher. I've always been okay without having a phone. We'll go out to dinner, my wife and I, and she'll be like, you're staring at those people. I'm like, yeah, no, but I just came up with the whole story up in my mind. Like I go there in my mind and I'm cool in that space. But I remember, and the reason why I have that quote up there is because I'm a huge advocate of sensory deprivation. And I remember, and I kind of tell the story quite often, but I remember the first time I was like on the brink of doing it. I really wanted to try it. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm afraid of what I'm going to think. And in that moment, I was like, well, that's scarier than anything I'll ever think inside that tank, because those thoughts are happening no matter what, consciously or subconsciously. Those thoughts are happening and they're firing off in my brain somewhere, the dark cavern in my brain somewhere. Those thoughts are happening, whether I'm aware of them or not. So it's best that I interface with those thoughts and change my relationship with them, or at least see them for what they're just my thoughts. They don't mean I have to act on them or I have to be the person that's thinking them. They're just thoughts. So that moment of silence and going into the sensory deprivation tank and meditating really has become, irreplaceable for the amount of reservoir of patience, the ability to respond to what life gives you rather than to react, and being a parent definitely adds on to that. But, there's this moment of time where you get, something happens, there's short staff at CVS, and there's this moment of time where you have a choice to make a decision on how you're going to move forward. Either you're going to react and go, fuck this shit, and start fucking knocking down the fucking hair gel on your way out the door, or you're going to say, okay, this is what it is. And now what do I do with the new information that I have? And that's why I think it is one of our biggest faults humanity wise, is that we don't sit with ourselves, especially with the cell phones, especially with the Amazon Primes and the YouTubes and the dopamine and all these constant abilities to be distracted. It says that when we are alone with ourselves, we do the first thing we can to avoid it.
You're right. I could tell you, yeah, I'll do anything. I'll do anything to avoid sitting with myself. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I didn't have my phone. Like, it dawned on me, like when I was sitting there at that table by myself, I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I doing? Like, I can't even leave because, like,
where are you going? They have my phone.
They have my phone, and I can't leave because they're making my food. I actually, they were taking a while to make it, and I did ask for the check before the food came. I did do that, but I didn't say, like, I didn't say it in a bad way. It's just like, it was just so that it could be a seamless thing. But it was like, it's something that it's something I definitely have to work on, because clearly I'm afraid of myself. Well, I'm afraid of who I am.
No, there's nothing. I think a lot of people are. I think that there's a lot of power in and there's a lot of opportunity and moments that you can be present, where you can, take the smallest things. And Corey Allen talks about in his book that, even like brushing your teeth, like you could take that moment to be present, having your first cup of coffee in the morning, you could take that moment to be present. Or car rides. Like, I do my best now to listen to nothing and if I do, you and I actually have a very common thing that we both listen to, like, jazz music, like coffee lounge jazz music, because there's nothing to it. It's just this melodic kind of vibe in the background that's just kind of omnipresent. And it's not as engaging or thought provoking or emotional driving. It's just kind of it's just there. It's just chill. Right. And it is in those small moments, if you could recognize them while you're about to enter them or you're in them, and stop yourself and be like, oh, like to that point, like, what do I do with myself? Oh, I could just chill right now. I could just be. I don't have to do anything.
Right. Yeah, I know. I understand. I know what you're saying. And I tell myself that, that's, again, it's just something that I've noticed that is the big thing in my life that will always, that I could pinpoint, like just the nucleus of everything.
Sure.
Like I really dawned on me in the past couple of days. That is the biggest thing out of all the stuff that I have, all the tentacles of the many wirings in my brain that work the way they do. That is it. That's the big one, is that to sit with myself and allow myself to do nothing without worrying about what I'm going to do next with music, without worrying, I always got to have my hands on something. And for me to just sit and not have a choice to sit, God, I don't know what I would do in jail. I don't know what the hell I'd ever do with the whole
solitary
confinement. I mean,
go crazy.
I'd have to, I've been, I guess when,
Are you an avid meditator?
I'd be lying if I said that I've been able to consistently do it every day, but I've done it. I've meditated more in this past year than I ever have in my life.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something that I have to keep up with for very specific reasons for me. If I'm going to stay on track, it's got to tell you the truth, there's got to be a mix. There's got to be a variation of prayer, meditation, journaling, reading, and talks like this.
Yeah.
There's and I have support groups and like you and your group and other groups I have, it's very important for me to keep that going. Yeah. Because it keeps me out of isolation.
Yeah. And it's also the idea of that, we think that we have control over it. It's like, oh, I got this. It's like the moment you think that it's like a diet or a workout regimen or meditation or journaling or whatever you're doing, that's a healthy practice towards optimization or the best version of yourself, whatever you want to label it. The minute you think that you have it under control and you can allow it to, like, I got this, that's the first sign that it's time to double down on it. Because I'm guilty of it. Where I'm like, I don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. today. I got it. 5 days later, 6 days later, a month later, I'm like, fuck, why'd I let go? Because we think that, and again, it's a grind every day, sometimes all day long, to stay in that positive mindset, to be the gatekeeper of your mind, to be aware of your thoughts, to be cognizant of what you're thinking and feeling, and that awareness that comes to it. And now interfacing with that new data, not labeling it good, not labeling it bad, but just seeing it for what it is with discernment and no judgment, and not saying like, fuck, I'm on my phone. What am I going to do with myself? I don't know what to do with myself. I'm fucking, and just being like, all right, I'm on my phone now. This is a new opportunity to test the stoicism, to test what I've learned.
Right.
I look at it with my kids too. I'm like, here's an opportunity to test my patience. Like, let's see how long we could push this.
Well, I think I might've told you once that at first, when I was given the diagnosis for my cholesteatoma in my ear, I was very upset. I was upset. That day was terrible. It's like, and because when she told me that I had a cholesteatoma, she didn't know if it was worst case or best case scenario, because we didn't do the CAT scan yet.
Right.
So she said that this could be a thing where I'm going to tell you right now, she was very blunt and honest that, the procedure might have to be done behind the ear. If this cholesteatoma has grown big enough to where it's in your inner ear bones, I have to take apart your inner ear bones. It's going to be one of 2 surgeries where there's a chance that it may have eroded the bone. And if that happens, there's a chance that you might permanently lose more hearing.
Right. And for someone like you,
right,
what worse scenario could you fucking have? If there was ever going to be like here you go. Let's test you out right now. Let's see how well you hold up against this. It's exactly like, here it is.
That's
it couldn't be a
exactly
worse diagnosis.
And I didn't do well at first. I didn't do well. I went back into some pretty self-destructive habits. I'm not going to lie. I'm not perfect. I had to pull myself out of the trench. And then I eventually, I just said, you know what? I was like, look, one little step at a time. I'm going to go. I'm going to get this CAT scan. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what I have to do with that. I set up all the appointments. I got it done. And then one little thing, the news got better and better. Did the CAT scan, which was a little nerve wracking, but it showed that the results showed that it was in a controlled space. And she even said that, look, I'm cautiously optimistic that we may even do the surgery through the ear canal, which they did.
Right.
They just did it through the ear canal, and it didn't affect any of the inner ear bones. But I remember thinking, and I might have told you this, that I was like, I chose to believe it as the one thing that I constantly put out into the universe or God or whatever. I was like, I really, really focused the past year on mental strength, and what better? I feel like that's what I was given. I was given something,
a challenge worthy.
Yeah,
a challenge worthy of where you were.
It was a challenge. It was an endurable challenge because when I look back, it's like, this wasn't some kind of major, not like I was getting heart surgery.
Right.
It was just enough to scare me a little bit,
just to fucking poke the bear, just like
a little obstacle that I had to get through. And it's like, you want to, how are you going to get more mentally strong if you don't have exercise? You need exercise.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, these are the things that you have to, it's a great opportunity for you to work out your mind and really, and I had to, and it was a workout. It was almost a daily workout, because the things I noticed was that I did lose hearing. Right. I if I put my finger in my left ear and spoke, it felt like I had two fingers in my head. And right now I still don't have, my hearing's actually worse than it was before, because it's going to take some time.
Right.
But but I managed, and I just kept telling myself, like, anytime a little voice in my head said, look up some horror stories about cholesteatoma.
Come on, go WebMD. Come on.
I did. I
looked up some fucked up shit. I
saw some stories about one guy who had a cholesteatoma, and then all of a sudden he dropped dead because they didn't realize it was advanced and it went into his brain.
Yeah.
Like, I saw some crazy shit, but I went back and I told myself, I finally, especially in the last month, I just fell into letting go, and I played the cards that were dealt. I played the cards, and I was like, look, I did everything in my power. It's out of my hands. People said, good luck with the surgery. I was like, tell the doctor it's out of my hands.
Yeah, you're right, though.
It's out of my hands. I did every little thing. I even went as far as getting a second opinion to get another surgeon to do it. And, they didn't take my insurance. So that didn't, so I did everything that I could. And I was, and you've
exhausted all options, and the rest is just not in your hands anymore.
I was nervous about the anesthesia. And that was a very peaceful experience.
Trust me. I know. I've been there.
A very peaceful
You're
experience.
counting backwards, and you're like, wow, I'm really fucking high right now. And then all of a sudden you're out cold. Good night.
Exactly.
It's all over. And next thing you're waking up, you're like, what the fuck? Like, what happened?
It's
what?
Exactly what happened.
What happened? Where am I now?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and there is something to that where, you could show up as much as you can. You could read all the books. You could do all the meditating. But when you're when you're facing something in reality, or this version of reality, that's the proving ground. It's jujitsu, it's yoga. Like, those are great vacuums it's a sensory deprivation tank. Like, those are great vacuums to be at peace, or to be at war, or to find harmony, right? Those are great places, because what else is transpiring? It's what you learn in those places that you're meant to take out into the real world and prove it on the grounds, prove it on the battlefield of life, that you can overcome these things. And as you level up in life, as you level up in this game that we're playing right now, the challenges get harder, as you get your out of your loincloth and your stick, and you get your Damascus sword and your armor. You're no longer going against the little creatures in the woods. You're going against the big bosses now,
Right.
and that's
Sure.
and that's a big boss, something that you fear, something that could affect your livelihood, something that affects
Right.
who your identity, how you've identified. So, that's a big win at the end of the day.
You're absolutely right. And I'm just happy that it's behind me. And I know that I don't know what's ahead, but I mean, I do know some things are ahead. I have a trip to Germany in September. I'm going for some kind of music thing over there with a big music retailer out there. And I have a 13-mile race in Vermont in September as well.
There you go. I'm doing a half marathon here. I'm doing a Pain to Pain in October.
Are you?
It's a 14 half marathon. Yeah.
Nice.
So 14 and change. So that's I have to start
Hell yeah.
preparing for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is those, and that's something I've learned like through jujitsu and yoga and meditating and now trail running, which I haven't done as much as I'd like to, but I'm someone who likes that almost in theory endless pursuit, right? Life, right? The endless pursuit of life. That's what life is, right? It's an endless pursuit of self-discovery and unfolding a path before you as things unravel. Like again, jujitsu, trail running, meditating, anything that's, the ability is endless in theory. I'm drawn to that because I think that's life. That is life on the grand stage, is that it in this weird way, it's endless. Even when we go, it's endless.
Life is action. I wish I had put this to practice a long time ago, but I make sure now that there's always something on my schedule to get me out of my comfort zone. It used to be in the past where it's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be really proud of myself afterwards. And I'm just going to kind of I'm just going to, relax again and just kind of clam up and be in my nice little cozy nook for a while. But the cozy nook is a very dangerous place because it makes it possible to stew in your own head and, kind of go to other places for like a quick fix and make you feel better that aren't necessarily good for you. But when you go out and you do things that you're uncomfortable doing, you're living. It's like even being just being on that, like I keep going back to me sitting at that table on the sidewalk. That was a life experience. It was like I was actually living. I was uncomfortable because it's not something I normally do, but I was enjoying the weather. I was outside in the weather and I was actually, living. And even the fact that I had anxiety is a reminder that I'm alive, because otherwise, you could be dead. You could,
could just be dead. But listen, but like to that point, right? Anxiety, it's how you interpret it, right? It's just your body giving you information. That's all it is. We interpret it, we label it, we give it this term. I have anxiety, I have this, I have depression. We give these things, these words, these feelings, these emotions, the power, right? We hand over our power to them and say, well, I have anxiety, I have depression, that's just who I am. And we give these words and these feelings power when really, when you break them down, if you looked at a scan, an MRI scan, or you look at, an emotional body scan, right? It's just data. It's just information. It's how you're interpreting that information. It's like, the old saying is like, well, if you're nervous about something, it means you care about it. That's a good thing. It's just information and data.
Well, I remember seeing like people, I forget where I read it, but I think it's a pretty well-known thing. I'm sure a lot of people with anxiety have heard this and they roll their eyes, but I always found comfort in it. It was one of the things that I would go to that made me feel comfortable was how like excitement and anxiety are the exact same thing chemically.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right. I think about that because it's interesting how that works to I remember when I went on tour a few years back, which was kind of, it was like ripping my soul out of my body. That's what it felt like to get me to go on a plane by myself. That was my biggest fear all through high school. I'd have nightmares about me being on a plane by myself. Kidding me? That's the worst fear I could possibly do. And I did it. And
you could use that experience now with the ear surgery. You could use that experience with sitting uncomfortably in a cafe by yourself with no phone to distract you.
That's why the best medicine for anxiety is doing all the things that you fear most, because they become ammunition for future events. And I'll never forget when the first night I was in New Orleans and I had to go in front of a couple of thousand people to introduce the band and kind of just be this jerk off on stage, selling Jägermeister merch. I really didn't believe in any of why I was there. I wasn't singing. It was very difficult for me. It was a psychological thing for me to even feel comfortable being there in the first place and why I was there. I was social media support. I just felt like I was so off the alignment of what I wanted to do. But I'll never forget. But it still felt.
It's good. Weird though, because you're doing the thing that you thought you wanted to be doing in the capacity that you thought you wanted to be doing it. But because it's not truly authentic, right? And it doesn't mean that you had to be singing, but it just meant that it just wasn't resonating with who you were. It just, as great as an experience it might have been, it was still just that slightly off. Whereas doing something as simple as whatever, producing a song in your own personal studio has more authenticity than that entire experience, I'm sure.
Right. Well, I just felt like, I felt like I wanted to be recognized as an artist, and I really wasn't even doing the work to be recognized as an artist. To be fair, I was still very much riding on the YouTube thing. So I was, I had, there were people on that tour that were really, that's where a lot of the people came to see, like, the band Hailstorm. I was introducing them. But I remember though, still the feeling, there was a lot of anxiety giving, when the sound guy gave me the wireless mic to go on stage, do your thing. And he handed it to me. I'll never forget that first night I had an anxiety attack. The rush of panic came over me as he handed me the mic, and I'm like, oh fuck. So I walked towards the stage, and I just kind of like, because of the adrenaline, people probably just thought I was pumped, but because of the adrenaline, I screamed, New Orleans, and the fucking roar just like kind of
brought
me right back. And it just like snapped me into it. And I'll never forget that, because it set the tone for the entire tour for me, because I was like, because I went to sleep feeling really calm that night. I was like, oh, well, if I could do that in front of a couple of thousand people, I could flip that. If I can flip it in front of a couple of thousand people, many miles from home with nobody I know, then I could do this.
Right.
I could do it. And I did it. Like I'm telling you, I would not be where I am today without experiences like that. I can't believe this too, because there have been times in recent times I'm like, why the hell did I even do that tour? What a waste of fucking time. They tell you, do tours like that because you can make contacts. Please, Lizzie knows who I am from Hailstorm. Joe, the guitarist from Hailstorm. Like they if they see me in public, they're gonna say hello.
Right.
Like we follow each other on social media. Big deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I didn't get no record deal out of this,
right.
Nothing. But at the same time, that life is not like that. Actually, doesn't matter much. Like life is more. It's more important to. These experiences are sometimes the most important experiences in life are the ones that really don't technically amount to anything big, technically,
right? Because
they do
on paper,
right?
On paper, you're like, why did you do this? But then intrinsically, there was a growth or a change or something that fired off a lesson that you gained
It was exposure therapy.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't put that on an Excel spreadsheet. You can't put that in a bank account. You can't put that on views or downloads or follows.
Yeah.
That's something that is intrinsically growing and really levels you up in life. And then you can extrapolate that feeling and apply it to other areas of your life and just recognize, oh, this is that feeling all over again, but now it's just this, or it's multiplied by this. It's the same root feeling.
Yeah. And can I tell you that I'm sure, there might be people who will listen to this and think, oh, well, this guy clearly doesn't have anxiety as bad as I do. Let me tell you, man, my anxiety was pretty bad when I was introduced to the world of anxiety when I was like 15, in just starting high school, the middle of high school. I mean, some of it's kind of embarrassing for me to admit, but I'd be like, a 15, 16-year-old kid who was home alone and would cry calling my mother because I was having panic attacks. So I was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I couldn't even go down the street. So like, if I could do it with no medication, anybody could do it.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge takeaway because, again, we identify these feelings and these feelings become our identity, right? We own these feelings. We take them on. I have this, I am this, I am. And, it doesn't matter the levels because I think that's where we get caught up. Well, I have bad anxiety. It's just a root feeling. And if you can overcome that feeling or reinterpret that feeling and apply it to some form of wisdom or some form of growth, you're shifting who you are. You're changing the way your brain works. You're changing, the neurological pathways that have been calcified over years. And you're now using that as a power. You're using that reservoir of experience to propel you forward. And, like you said earlier, mood follows action. When you're doing the work and you're showing up for whatever it is, your mood's going to change. And then it becomes this circle of, I want to eat better because I want to feel better because I want to work out better because I want to have a better headspace. And once you get on that wheel, that becomes super addicting, but in a healthy way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, the
truth, man. Yeah.
The other day, again, I go back to the other day of me waiting online for a prescription, getting my blood drawn. I mean, I even went to I'm a pro at getting my blood taken now. My brother, forget about it. He it's like an event for him. He doesn't do it often. If he has to do it, he's got to be laying down. He's got to, he's got to have the right person doing it.
Right.
Me, I went in there. She called the people. I made a joke. She called some lady's name, a woman named Jody, and then me. And I walk up there and she's asking, so who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm Jody. She goes, who are you? You only called one guy. So I said, I'm Jody.
Right.
So Jody started laughing because I'm like, oh,
who else am I at this point?
Right.
Clearly not Jody. That's Jody.
Right. So like, I'm like, kind of just keeping the energy light and all this stuff. And
you're playing.
Right. And it made for a better experience, of course. The nurse, I didn't tell you this, but when I went to go get my blood work for the preparation for the surgery, one of the nurses there, oh my God, I don't want to get her in trouble. Obviously, I'm not. You don't know where to find her anyway. But she took my blood and like as she was taking my blood, it popped out, and she tried to she's like, oh, it popped out. I said you, and I was obviously at the time I was pissed. I was like, are you fucking serious? I said, well, you're not sticking that
back in. Like, what are we doing here?
I said, do you have enough? And she's like, yes. Yeah, I got enough. I'll make it work.
I had my own blood in there. Fuck it.
So that lady was there. She was there. And she went and she was like, she goes, do you want me to do it? Or do you want another nurse to do it? And I just kind of, I went like this, and she's like, you know what? Yeah, do it. She had another nurse take my blood. This is why I'm like a regular there now. I get my blood taken. The girls at the counter know who I am.
That's it.
Like,
listen, I think there's something there that's just like, it's playing with life, man. And that's something that I've learned from my children. And we somewhere along this line of life, we lose connection with who and what we are, and whether it be systematically in place for, maniacal reasons and diabolical reasons, or that's just the way that the world works and you need to lose yourself to find yourself again. But once you learn to start like playing with life again and having fun and these novelty experiences, and I think that only comes from doing things. It doesn't have to be getting a ukulele like I did, or trying jujitsu or whatever. You discover new levels of your life and new abilities and new skill sets, and you unlock parts of your brain that you'd never thought you'd unlock. And, when you could play with life a little bit and have fun and be kind and good morning or how are you? And like these small gestures that they go a longer way than we even realize.
That's something I have to really, I gotta force myself out to do more, because sometimes I do have a tendency of just being very like stone face in public. I don't want to be bothered, but I have my moments. Like there are times like that thing I just told you that
Jody
that I play, right? And because there was sometimes in life, like I always see like there's a presence of like the universe or a God will kind of show in ways that'll remind you to lighten up. Yeah. Like I remember one time there when I was there, my doctor had put in an order. I had 7 vials of blood taken. Okay. And she had put in an order for a certain thing to be tested, and they didn't test it with that blood. So I had to go take more. I said to the girl at the counter, I said, what did they do? What do they do with the 7? What do they drink it?
Right. Like, what are they doing with all this fucking blood?
What do they do?
Like,
and I was pissed off, but I made the other people that were working there laugh. And like this one lady, she stopped. She goes, "I'm sorry, I really needed that laugh today." Yeah. And it kind of like stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, "Oh," I said, "Well, I'm glad I can provide some entertainment," because then I realized I'm like, it's one of those things that reminds you that that a lot of people there are kind of like people that you come in contact with in day to day. You're probably going to come in contact with a lot of people who are working a job they don't even want to be at. Right. Like the people in CVS, these pharmacies, the pharmacists there, they don't want to be there. Let's be honest.
Maybe some of them do. I mean, that's a big job. Pharmaceuticals. That's a big career path.
Maybe the pharmacists want to be there.
Okay, good point. Yeah. Okay. Okay, fair. Good point.
All right. And I know that these girls who are working behind the counter at the lab don't want to be there either, because the medical system is a mess right now. Right. And every there's systems that fail, and you have to deal with a bunch of angry old people who
curmudgeons.
It's very bad. So like and that kind of like that put it in perspective when that girl's like, I really needed that laugh. Like I needed somebody to come in here and say something ridiculous like, what do they drink my blood? Because the fact that someone needs that kind of entertainment makes you realize, wow, like you
just don't know where people are.
It puts things in perspective that maybe we got to find a way to loosen up, and even the times that we would normally be very stressed out. Maybe that's another thing the universe has forced me to do this year, is to keep. I feel like the doctor's office is like my second home, and not because I'm not even really in bad health. My labs are beautiful,
right? Like
for the most part. Beautiful. Right. I had a little elevated blood pressure this year, whatever, had the ear thing. Okay. But that's really the most of it,
right?
For the most
all
part.
Things considered.
But I've had to be in that environment a lot, because like there were still things that I needed to take tests and
square up.
But so it's like, it kind of forced me in that position to like, you know what? I'm constantly I feel like I'm prescribed things to test, to make me learn patience, not even to test my patience, because if I'm going to test the patience that I've had, there's really not a lot there. I mean, I think we've already tested patience. Now it's like I'm put in situations, I feel like, that are making me learn patience
and gain patience.
Exactly.
And gain patience. Yeah, man. I
don't know if any of that stuff is interesting to talk about.
I love it. I do, because this is just what I love to talk about. But I'm personally, I'm glad that we reconnected in this chapter of our lives. Whether it be the men's group, this conversation, the conversations we have all the time, the connection of stoicism and how much that brings to my daily life. And I know yours as well. And there's so much to extrapolate from that. But, from the outside looking in, especially in this culture that we have now, it's like, oh, YouTube and millions of views and downloads and subscribers and all the things. And those are the things that we lean on from the outside that we think is successful. This is, oh, well, he's living it up. He's doing great. He's doing this. And it's just like, no, there's the other side of this too, that isn't all just smiles and YouTube and all of these things. And I think it's so important to tell that story, to have that conversation, because, in that moment when I saw that video, I was like, I know exactly where he is. And I'm just going to say hi. I'm just going to put out the branch and say, hey, dude. And I'm stoked that we've connected again. And I really appreciate you coming on, having the conversation, a real conversation, which we have all the time. But I think for people watching, it's important to see it from multiple facets, multiple people, because the journey's the same, right? It's the human journey. It's the hero's journey, if you will, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And it's about, sharing and learning and giving. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Where can people connect with you, watch your videos?
Anthony Vincent.
That's it.
Fuck
it. Fuck it.
You'll find me somewhere. I got some stuff coming out soon, I guess. But I was going to go back on a schedule of doing videos every Friday. And then me and my management and a lot of people right now realize that the rules don't mean shit anymore. Being on a consistent schedule doesn't even matter to algorithms. It seems like forget about it. I've actually let go a lot of trying to please that shit. And I'm thinking, I'm branching off into other things. YouTube is definitely something that I'll always have a place in. But look, it's time to bring come back full circle and reopen the floodgates to a time in my life when I felt more in balance. And that's the reason why I was able to go to the next level in the first place. We're always going to I always feel like we make it to one level, and the real objective is to let the water rise to the next level. It's almost like we're going up
staircases and landings.
Staircase, right?
And then you get to the landing, and next staircase might be longer, thicker, narrower, more steps, less steps, but it's all staircases and landings, and it really never ends, unfortunately and fortunately, because we always are given an opportunity to climb that next staircase, God willing. So
that's right.
I'm glad we connected, man. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, and look forward to the next one, brother.
Definitely, man. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate it.